Yeah. This video might be a bit of a hot take, but I think it is actual contender for my favourite movie in the MCU.
I'm Sam Raimi.
This is a Sam Raimi movie, and that is one of the best compliments I can actually give it. It has all the trademarks of previous Sam Raimi movies, unfortunately with a bit of MCU schlock in there, but we'll get to that. The movie balances horror and comedy very well without feeling forced and quippy, and it still manages to keep the serious tone, allowing us to truly stay invested in the story. From here on now though, there will be spoilers, so you've been warned. Wanda is the villain in this movie, which everyone kind of predicted, and it started to look like that from the trailers. And if you love Thanos, you're in for a damn treat, because she is by far the best villain in the MCU now, and my personal favourite character. I had many flaws with the way WandaVision ended, but the one consistent thing was that she was my favourite character in the MCU by that point. She killed the man she loved just to see it undone straight away and killed again by someone else. Then to see everyone else die around her and then die herself. Being unable to say goodbye to Vision and out of all that grief and trauma creates a reality with not just Vision but a whole family. Even though it was fake to the rest of the world, to her it was a real family. Let alone the traumatic past that she had before even the Avengers. And the core of her motivation is that she just wants her family back. So yeah, I understand her motivations. She's incredibly compelling and emotional, and actually quite scary, and I'll get into that in a little while. Doctor Strange as a character is majorly improved here. I don't remember shit from his first movie. I think it was just bang average MCU, except for some cool visuals and great casting. Cumberbatch was perfect casting, but I just didn't care enough about the film to go back. I think it's been one of the worst MCU villains. Otherwise, it's just the same thing we've got multiple times in this cinematic universe. But I've loved Strange in everything I've seen him in. I think he works so well bouncing off other people. But this movie actually brought me more invested into him as a person. It's not that I wasn't necessarily invested before, but I am genuinely caring for him now. The first time we see our version of Strange is at Christine's wedding, and he is dealing with the guilt of Infinity War. Despite seeing no other way, he still did give away that time stone. And people question whether it was the only way, because even though it was the long play, and even though they brought back everyone who was dusted, people were still lost. There were permanent sacrifices that cannot be undone. And it brings in the question that Raimi tackled incredibly well in his Spider-Man trilogy, and what comic book movies have kind of lost these days. But is Strange happy? Can he be happy? The duality and sacrifice of the massive responsibility of a superhero. However, with that said, that brings me into some flaws of the movie for me. The movie is an incredibly breakneck pace that it has no time for the little moments. Those moments work for sure, they are in here, they're some of the best scenes, but I think it could have had more time to breathe, actually delve into the question of Strange's responsibility, how he feels after Infinity War and Endgame, and more about the relationship of him and Christine, and whether he's happy. I think that could have had more time to breathe personally. Like I say, it's not like it isn't there, but just a bit more depth to it I would have appreciated. There is a line later in the movie where Strange turns to another universe's Christine and says, I love you in every universe. And that is a great line. It's so perfectly acted. That was an incredibly emotional line, and I loved it. America Chavez is almost the audience surrogate of this movie, a new character, and I really like her. I love her powers. It's kind of comic booky, but it creates for some really fun scenes, but she also has a tragic and interesting character. She is truly alone, there's no variance of her, and she tragically lost her mums when she was a kid. She's also a plot device, and it's hard to overlook that, but it never felt like she became more of a device than a character. It always felt like she was a character first, so it never really bothered me too much. Similar with Strange, we could have had a few more moments with her personally, I think, but overall, I think she's a very interesting character, and I can't wait to see what they do with her next. So I mentioned Wanda being a scary villain, and I've spoken about her as a character already, but there are moments in this movie where there is just pure horror or carnage, and it is so cool. That is all I can say. There's a scene where she's trapped in the mirror dimension but crawls out using reflections, looking like Samara from The Ring. It is so creepy and so damn cool. Before we go any further, I do want to say Elizabeth Olsen is fucking perfect. This is the performance of a lifetime. She's so good in this movie. She has quite a lot to do, and she nails all of it. And that brings us now to one of the biggest talking points, the Illuminati, which is obviously the Marvel reshoots they did around the time of No Way Home. The dialogue is suddenly typical MCU and a bit shit, and the green screens are everywhere, and there's a serious lack of colour. And I think it's pretty much confirmed since Elizabeth Olsen said she never met John Krasinski.
No, I've never met him.
So yeah, that's where we get the cameos. We get Black Bolt from that Inhumans show that I still refuse to watch, and my main man, John Krasinski, as Mr. Fantastic, who, by the way, I can't judge Krasinski loads, I feel, but I know how good of an actor and filmmaker he is, so I have no doubt that he would make a great Mr. Fantastic, but I can't really judge him properly. There wasn't much for him to do. I can't confidently say he'd be perfect or that he'd be bad. I have no doubt that he could be perfect casting. Also, on a side note, I hated the suit. Design-wise, it's fine, like average MCU, but it's CGI. It's like those Avengers suits. Like, why are you doing this? But yeah, anyway, back to the Illuminati. Obviously, all the other members are there that we saw in the trailers. Professor X is great to have back with Sir Patrick Stewart. We get a little X-Men animated series theme as he rolls in. He's in the green suit, the big yellow chair. Great to see him.
Just because someone stumbles, loses their way, it doesn't mean they're lost forever.
And the best part of that whole sequence is that they all die. Every single member of the Illuminati is fucking massacred.
You can't defeat me.
No, I know. But he can.
Hi. I love to have the image that Kevin Feige gave Raimi the call, like, you gotta include some more cameos after No Way Home. And he was like, okay, Marvel have fucked with me with Spider-Man before. Okay, I'll include these cameos, but they're all gonna die. He was like, sure, I'm gonna do it my way. And that's how it felt, and that's why I really enjoyed that whole sequence. While I wish we'd got whatever the original plan was, it actually slots in kinda nicely. It's a bit of like a detour for sure, but overall, I still really enjoyed the sequence. It's not really necessary to the plot, but it's brutal, and it's bloody, or at least as far as the MCU goes, and I just absolutely love it. Black Bolt blows his own head off after Wanda removes his mouth, so he realizes his mouth is gone, and he screams out of panic, and obviously it's not coming out of anywhere, so his own head caves in. Captain Carter is cut in half by her own shield, and then Mr. Fantastic is turned into like string, and then his head exploded. And that was the brutal one for me, because we just learned about his family. His screams and the effect they use just make it look that much more painful. And many people have taken issue with Mr. Fantastic being stupid in this movie, and admittedly his line isn't the brightest, saying Black Bolt can destroy with one whisper from his mouth, but I believe it's meant to be like a threat to avoid killing Wanda. It's hard to say that because a few minutes earlier they were saying how the Illuminati make the difficult decisions, but I think it's also very possible that he just didn't know that Wanda could do that. He doesn't know how powerful this Wanda is, maybe, and they were very clearly arrogant from the get-go, so I don't think it's as bad as people say, but it does feel rushed, and they are clearly obvious reshoots for me, which is a bit unfortunate. But it's great to have them here anyway. It's a fun sequence with what Raimi does with them. The movie on the whole also isn't as multiversal as I expected. I don't know if I'd call it a multiverse of madness. We get two main universes, and one of them's the main one, so we get slight glimpses of loads for sure, but the visuals are probably the best we've had across the whole MCU as well. The camera feels alive, there's so much movement, and it's actually engaging visually. There's creativity, and the colors are vibrant, they're alive, everything feels alive except for the grey Illuminati sequence, but nonetheless, Sam Raimi's filmmaking really comes through. Like, the horror elements are pretty good. That was refreshing. They're nothing properly scary. There was a jump scare that got me, to be fair, where Professor X died, because I think that was perfectly built up. I don't know, there's just a really cold feeling to that scene, having the red cloud amongst this white fucking stage, and Wanda coming up and ripping his head off. Like, that was really creepy to me. And also the music. I really like the music in this film. Sam Raimi and Danny Elfman shining through ahead of pretty much every other director in the MCU, in my opinion. The Darkhold is in this movie, and there is an ability that it gives you to dreamwalk, which is you can possess a variant of yourself across universes, and Strange does that at the end, but he does it to a corpse of himself. And the souls of the damned out of the Darkhold try to stop him, because obviously you're not meant to do that, and so this zombie Strange uses literal demons as a cape and to fight Wanda. And that was just one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And obviously very clear metaphor about Strange overcoming his demons. It was just so badass. It was visually so unique, so cool. I absolutely loved it. However, it's kind of implied that Wanda's dead, but I don't think she is. It felt like it could have been the end of Wanda's story, how it had gone, but it didn't feel executed in that way. I love the final act. I think it's great, but it didn't feel like a final scene for Wanda. I think Elizabeth Olsen will be back in some way or another. This movie's been a bit controversial, and I think that's always going to happen when you take a bit of a risk. But I think a lot of the criticism comes down to expectations. Not all of it, don't get me wrong. Some of it is very valid, and I appreciate that. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. But revealing Professor X in the trailers really sets things up. And after No Way Home as well, like, you're setting yourself up for big expectations here. And it's not a cameo-filled film. I'm fine with that. And I remember seeing a video where they were like, if they're revealing Professor X in the trailer, what else have they got? Not much. Like, John Krasinski, I'd say, is another big cameo. I don't think anyone really cares about the others, to be honest. When you've revealed half of your big cameos then, with that logic, in the trailers, you're really, the marketing just didn't do any favors for the film, in my opinion, which is a bit of a shame. That's why I kind of wiped my head, because there were so many different rumors. So like the week before I went to see it, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna wipe any expectation, just hope I get a good Sam Raimi movie. And I definitely feel like I did. Obviously I do have flaws with the movie, but generally I had a great time, and it's one of the top MCU movies. Don't know if it's my favorite, but that makes a better title.